Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Happy Friday.
Hello there.
Wow, what a week we've had.
It's been a packed week.
What a week we've had. Sam Howell was traded. Mm-hmm. Our boy Hands is going to the Eagles now.
Hurts and Hands.
Your boy Russ is probably like, wait a minute.
Russ has never been my boy. Don't ever.
He's probably like, wait a minute. I thought I was just going to beat out Kenny Pickett for a job.
Russ is your boy. I never wanted Russ.
You may have noticed, too, Mason Rudolph isn't even there anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So they don't have a backup, a quote-unquote backup quarterback anymore. Guess who's going to Pittsburgh now? Justin
Fields.
Yeah, I think so. We're getting all of the answers are starting to materialize now.
Did you know Mason Rudolph's full name, by the way?
Do I want to know what it is?
Brett Mason Rudolph.
Oh, Brett. I thought it'd be like Mason Beauregard Rudolph.
No, it's definitely the whitest name I've ever heard, though.
Brett
Mason
Rudolph.
Rudolph?
Mason Rudolph as a quarterback is better than Brett Rudolph.
Yeah, no, totally. No, he made the right call there, but it is still the whitest name I think I've ever heard.
Strong move.
Brett Mason Rudolph, without it being Irish Catholic, like a John Michael type name.
Strong move, Brett. You did it. You got it right early. Your parents are probably like, "Why do you go by this?" He goes, "Watch."
Anyway,
all right.
sorry.
So we got a lot of news. All right. So Kenny Pickett was just traded from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Pickett was a big Eagles fan. So he's pumped about
There's
that.
a picture of him that Schefter just tweeted in a number 11 jersey. I can't tell if that's Deshaun Jackson or Carson Wentz.
Also,
no, Jackson was 10. So, it's a Wentz jersey.
Been there 2 years. He's already pissed that they replaced him with a guy who's making $1 million, and most people around the league don't like. So
Steelers
Pittsburgh
country, let's ride.
Well, it read they brought in Russ, and they'll let him quote unquote compete, but obviously, he's going to win that job because they're already on the outs of Pickett. But I thought they would keep Pickett because he's on a rookie deal, and he didn't look like he was bad. It's not like it wasn't a Zach Wilson thing where you're like, I don't know, man, I'm not sure this guy can play. He looks like he can play a little bit, but they let him stew in that for a little bit, and he probably went to them and said, I don't like this.
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't like you. And they went and dealt him, which opens the door for we're starting to get the answers, and you could put Justin Fields prime candidate to now go to Pittsburgh. And I wouldn't be surprised with the pick that they just got, 98 overall, goes flying over to Chicago to get Justin Fields. And if they then don't take that, then I'm going to really start wondering out loud, is Caleb Williams telling them he doesn't want to play for them?
Right.
Because if that's what it is, if that's what the holdup is, I still firmly do not believe that there's no market for Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. I think they're hanging on to Justin Fields because there is something else going on here. And they're worried, and they don't want to take Drake May with the number 1 overall pick because this isn't we'll just take any of them. And I think their fans, even though maybe taking Jaden Daniels would be all right if, Caleb Williams doesn't want to play there, I don't think their fans are going to go over well with that because they know what they got in Fields, and they look at Daniels, and he looks like a similar player. I think with Williams, they sell to their fan base, we're getting this guy that looks like generational talent. We don't know whether he will be or won't be. But the fact that they haven't moved Fields with all these other quarterbacks now moving, Hal yesterday, Pickett, Mariota, Gardner Minshew, Kirk, all these guys, Baker signs, Brissett signs, all these guys are moving around. Vikings make a move that's clearly today to try to get into the top 10 and probably take Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, whoever they like, because they're not going to get 1 or 2. Right. Whoever they like, right? Whoever they like, they're going to try. They're trying to move up to do that. So they've laid their cards on the table of what they want to do. There's a lot of smoke about what the Giants want to do suddenly, but it's not about Justin Fields. They already went and got Drew Lock. They don't want to bring in Fields and Jones. We're running out of options here, guys. Yeah. And I do not believe all this reporting that was everybody sees him as a backup. No way. There's no way that that's the case. But the Bears haven't clearly, definitively wanted to get away from him. Why is that? Probably because the dude at USC isn't committing firmly to them yet, which is why, remember, this is an underrated thing that happened after the Combine. They wanted him to come to Chicago immediately. Remember that?
Right,
after the Combine, which is unusual. They wanted him to do that. It came out that they wanted him to do that. And he said, no, you can come to my pro day.
Yep.
Right? Which hasn't even happened yet.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, because I think that they wanted to put the full court press on him and go, look, like, if we're going to pick you, we want you to be happy here. Yeah. And if you commit, we're going to trade Justin Fields tomorrow to somebody. But he said, you know what? Why don't you just come to my pro day like everybody else? And I'll talk to you then. And then we'll do one of those top 30 visits after that. And they had no choice but to go. I'm telling you, this is what's happening. He doesn't want to go there. It is so clear. He may have to, because they could pick him. And then they could just go, look, dude, get over it. You're our quarterback. We're the Chicago Bears. What are you complaining about? But he's not committed to them. Publicly is not committed to them. And that's what this is. Like, Fields would have been traded by now. Like, you're telling me that some of these other teams preferred these other people? No way. Like, did Atlanta prefer Kirk? Maybe. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Did Tampa just want to stick with Baker? Yeah, probably. Like, I'll buy that. The Raiders think Gardner Minshew's better than Justin Fields. I don't believe that. I really don't believe that.
I mean, do you put it past the Bears though for overvaluing Fields? I don't.
Sure.
I don't put it past them because they're going former first.
Well, now they know it's too late. So then they screwed up their own market.
Right. I think that's actually what happened
Maybe.
Here because I think once
they still got to trade him though. That's the point. They have to do it. All that's happened here is the reshuffling has occurred without him being moved.
No.
Like that doesn't make any sense.
No, for sure though. But I think were supposed to be the first domino to fall, and then what happened yesterday was Howell was the first one moved. Right. He was the first quarterback. So Peters actually set the market.
Besides,
who else got traded? No one. Quarterback wise,
I wonder if Pittsburgh knew Pickett was available, if Vegas thought Pittsburgh was available, would they have thought differently?
Right.
I think Pittsburgh is screaming. They moved Pickett. Why would they do that? Because they're going to get somebody else.
Right.
So sorry, Russ. I think you're going to find out that you're not going to be the starter next year. And they also, this is incredible. They got him for a nothing deal. They promised him nothing, and all of a sudden, there may be a much more viable candidate competing with him this summer. And then all of a sudden he's probably ticked. And even if he is, they can just release him and it costs them nothing. They could trade him. He's on a $1 million contract. They could trade him now.
The other part about all this, though, is what stops the Steelers now with some extra picks to just take Penix late first round.
Correct.
That's what I think. I think what everyone's kind of sleeping on here too is the tier 2 quarterbacks are still there. Not enough talk has been about them because we always just talk about the top 4.
They could, but if I'm Tomlin, and now that market has shrunk the way that it shrunk, because the sleeper cell to me was Seattle, because I'll get into Howell in a minute. And I was saying this the other day. I go, I don't know, man. They let Locke walk. Geno's not their future quarterback. They know it. Right. They only have a year left. They're going to go get Fields.
Yeah.
And then what was wrong? They were the ones going hard and heavy after Howell. Okay, fine. So they ended up getting him. That closes that off. Well, who wants Fields? Apparently Denver wanted Howell too, but Howell fits the profile of what Sean Payton likes. Pocket quarterback.
Sure. Right,
that's what he's had tremendous amount of success with in his career was an all-time great pocket quarterback. But he can move a little bit, but all-time great pocket quarterback. He doesn't get him. It doesn't make sense. Well, it makes sense, I think, to go get him because it's a massive upgrade from what they have, but it doesn't feel the fit, right? It doesn't feel the fit.
Yeah, right.
You're telling me Tomlin doesn't want Justin Fields? You telling me that? You seriously? I thought the Raiders would go after him too. For sure, I thought the Raiders would go after him. I'm surprised they didn't. All that's happened here, though, is the market, and this is what was predictable, and this is why I said before the Combine, they have to do this now. They have to do it before it happens, because Kirk's going to go to somebody, and somebody, you could argue, Kirk's a safer bet. Maybe not from age and injury, recent injury history, but you know what the results are with him.
Right.
And if he's back to being healthy, you know what you have, a 4,500-yard passer with 25 to 30 touchdowns and not many interceptions. And so you know what you get with him. Fields a different story, obviously, but to me, and at me if you think I'm wrong about this, of the quarterbacks available, he was number 2 on that list to me. And I'd even argue he might be number 1 if you're worried about Kirk's age and injury history, recent injury history. I'd argue he'd be number 1. All these other quarterbacks moved. This is the Bears' fault. The Bears didn't just pull the trigger and trade him and then put the pressure on Caleb. Why? I think they're worried that if they trade Fields and then Caleb goes, I don't want to play for you, that they look really
they're screwed.
bad.
They're
screwed.
Yeah.
So their plan B is hanging on to Fields far too long. It's possible that they overrated what the market was for him, but they could have found out very quickly. I'm sure they found out at the combine what it was. They said, yeah, we'll trade for him. We'll give you this. And it probably wasn't what they wanted, but they could have got the deal done. And now to turn around and think they're going to get a first or second round pick from somebody when the market has dwindled like this, they aren't. So we don't know the truth, but I'm almost convinced that Williams hasn't committed to them personally, which is why they haven't made this move. I do not buy for a second that there is no market for him. No way. You want Kenny Pickett over him? You want Gardner Minshew over him? You want Mac Jones over him? No way do I believe that. These people aren't stupid that run these teams. He's way better than those quarterbacks. So you got to be kidding me if you think like he's worse than them. No way.
I think you're underestimating, though, that Fields now is starting to become nuclear with the fans.
I think it's the Bears. Well, I think it's the Bears they're scared. That's what I think is happening.
I'm not touching on that. I'm touching on it's to a lesser degree, but I think now if you trade for Fields, he's like Tebow-esque. People now freak out because they go, oh my God, we got Justin Fields. When I bet you a lot of teams look at him and go, yeah, we'd love to develop him. We'd love to have him sit on the bench for a little bit, but our fans are going to freak out when he's not starting and then go, oh my God, you're holding him back. Look what's happening with Bears fans right now. They're freaking out about him, and they want to keep him. I think what's happening is I think teams are learning he's not worth the squeeze. He's not worth bringing on board because a lot of teams view him as a developmental project, and they're going, if we trade for him, everyone pegs him to be the starter right away. Now, I'm with you. The fit happens in Pittsburgh because they can say whatever they want. And those fans will believe whatever they want to say. But either way, wait for Russ to have 2 bad games, and they're going to be chanting for Fields on right afterwards. So I think what's happening is teams are weighing in on it and going, it's not worth bringing him in because it's going to screw up everything, off the field.
I mean, honestly, if I'm Pittsburgh, if they can acquire him now, they're in an incredible situation. Let them compete for the job.
Oh, of course.
And then either way, you have a professional quarterback playing for you. You do. You have and potentially a high-tier professional quarterback playing for you, and they need it in that division badly, and it's a hedge bet on both of them. And it costs them nothing on both of them. That's the most amazing part of this. The cap number for Fields, if you trade for him, is like $2-point-something million. It's just for a year because his contract's going to run out. Yep. And on Russ, it's $1.2 million. So and there's no risk on either one of them other than you have to give up one mid-round pick to have both of them on your team, and you're taking a hedge bet on 2 guys, but one who might turn his career around and be really good again, or the other one who might be one of the best stocks you could buy right now cheaply and hope that it's going to go to the moon. Because that's what I think Fields could be. My argument on Fields, having played him and studied him the last couple of years, is I don't think that coaching staff did him any favors there. And I think if he goes to a place that is more open-minded to his skill set, builds an offense around him, then I think you have a very different player. They changed offensive coordinators 3 times. They were trying to turn him into a pocket passer, remember?
Right.
And then they finally were like, let him run a little bit. And then he ends up having a 1,000-yard rushing season because it is his strength. But it doesn't mean he's not a passer. Go watch him play. He's got a great arm. He can throw the ball. Is he developmental? Sure. But I think that they screwed up around him, and he deserves a second chance to go somewhere. And Pittsburgh moving Pickett, come on, man. They've committed to Russ for 1 year at $1 million. They do not have a quarterback beyond that. they must be calling Chicago today with that 98th overall pick going, do you want it? And your market's gone.
Are you discounting, though, that Pickett just didn't want to be there anymore? Because that's what the
Sure.
report's all saying. I mean,
sure.
And they might just be going, let's get what we can for him right now, because if we let him sit, then we're going to get
Sure.
nothing for him in the end.
I just have such a hard time believing this Fields thing. Like, I don't understand why he isn't somewhere else. How did that not happen yet?
I don't see it in Pittsburgh because I don't see Pittsburgh getting him and then committing to him. I just don't think
but that's my point. You can play it out for a year with him. You don't have to.
Well,
you don't have to.
You still have to pay him real money in year 5 and then possibly franchise tag him.
If you pick up the 5th-year option on his contract, which if you don't do, no
Right.
harm, no foul.
No,
it means you're taking. You would have given up. Pickett's not their long-term quarterback. I think we know that. They know that. They wouldn't have traded him if they thought it, or they wouldn't have gotten competition for him if they
both
thought
can
it.
be true. Pickett cannot be it, and they don't want Fields, too.
Possibility. But, like,
saying.
if you're going to take a shot on somebody, like, okay, so you're going to use a higher pick on Penix?
Maybe.
Who's older than Fields?
I mean, but it's still.
Seriously?
Look at the contract.
With bad. Okay, but this is my point. Fields' contract for a year is nothing burger. You can totally put him in your system, see where he is, and if it doesn't work out, you eat it on a 3rd-round pick that you gave up for him, and you're still looking. I always believe in I've heard some people say this. You just keep swinging at quarterback till you get it right. And I just feel like someone is going to swing on this guy, and they're going to end up having a very, very, very good high-level quarterback. A really great one, I don't know. But a really good one, I think so. Like Buffalo early could have moved off of Josh Allen. He was very similar to Fields, like wayward passing, didn't look like he understood the offense very well, and they put people around him, and he developed, and he turned into now he's like one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not saying Fields is definitively in that. I just think he's got the possibility of being that if you put the right system around him. And Pittsburgh, which is a very stable place, to me feels like, okay, this is the place to try to give him a shot. That's what I think. But we'll see. And now that they've moved Pickett, I agree that maybe Pickett just got real wonky and was like, I want out of here.
And the Steelers are the organization that does do that. They do move on from someone. No hostages, right? I mean,
no hostages. Well, they did
Tomlin,
they traded a receiver, and it was because he was like making noise. Right. And they're like, all right, fine, bye.
Right, and not to mention...
we're not going to hold anybody hostage here. If Pickens ever came to him and said, I just want out of here, I think they'd move him.
And it was the same trade as the Howell trade. It was a quarterback and, a 4th rounder for a 3rd rounder and a couple 7th rounders.
Yes.
That's a pure Steelers move. They love doing moves like that.
Yes.
Steelers and the Patriots love doing the value swap, essentially.
I am still under the belief that the reason why Fields hasn't been moved to somebody at this point, whether it's Pittsburgh or not, somebody, is because they're concerned that they're going to get screwed at the draft.
Yep.
That's why I think he hasn't been moved, because it made no sense to not move him in and around the combine before free agency opened. They could have done the precursor move, and they would have had the full market at their, right in front of them. Who wants him? Put something, because only one team's going to get Kirk. It didn't appear anybody was going to get Baker. Like, there weren't many options. There never are. There never are a lot of good options at high-level quarterbacks. Somebody's going to want... I just can't believe that the Raiders came to the conclusion that Gardner Minshew's a better option for them than Justin Fields if the price is basically the same. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm guessing that they were told, like Seattle was told, like Pittsburgh was probably told, we're not trading him yet.
Right.
Why aren't you trading him yet? You're not convinced that's the guy with the number 1 pick? If you aren't, auction the pick off. Mm-hmm. What do you wait? There's a line out the door who wants Caleb Williams that will give you a massive deal for him.
But they also might just want Jaden Daniels then if they can't get Caleb. I mean, that's the thing.
Then trade to us at number 2. We'll take Caleb Williams. I promise you that.
Right.
We just hired his offensive coordinator. Of course we would.
Right, but if you're Washington, Washington, though, you have the leverage.
I'm not exactly. I said this from the get-go. If they actually don't want Caleb, or Caleb's telling them, I don't want you.
Right.
We don't have to trade with you.
That's right. Correct.
Like, let him fall to us.
Right.
And we're just going to take him. And if Williams is telling this to the Bears, he'd probably tell other teams, if you even think of jumping Washington to get the number 1 pick and take me, you're going to have the same problem with me.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to get too excited about this, but I got a funny feeling we're very much in play to get him, whether it's move up to get number one. It moves them back to 2. They could take a quarterback. They could take Marvin Harrison. They could do either one of those things. Either one of them, they could do it. Or he just gets so weird with them that they're just like, fine, we'll take Jaden Daniels.
Right.
Or we'll trade off number 1, but you're gonna have to take Jaden Daniels because that's just the way it's gonna be.
Right.
And that team's just gonna have to sell. We think Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in the draft. They could say that. And then we get Caleb Williams. Like, I think more and more and more, this is starting to feel like this is really a possibility because a lot of this doesn't make enough sense to me. There's just no way in my mind that Justin Fields has no value around the league. I don't believe that. But they don't want to trade him yet. Why don't they want to trade him yet? Gee, I wonder.
How much better?
What other reason could there be?
Well, how much better is Fields than Howell and Pickett in that tier? I would say he is better than those two.
Oh, well, I mean, as far as a mobile quarterback, it's not close. Right. So, like, we don't need to have that discussion, right? Like, this is a top 5 running quarterback. Sure. Period. Yeah. Right. Neither one of those guys are even. I think Hal's mobile, but they ain't like that. He ain't that.
He's
right?
not that. Yeah,
They're neither that. Hal, to me, right now, way better pocket quarterback.
But look at what happened
right now.
Look
Pickett, I think, is, again, I don't want to discredit the guy. He gets another chance. He goes somewhere else.
He'd be the Darnold level type guy.
Sure. He could turn out to be a pretty good starter. I don't want to put that, out of reach for him. He could have a pretty good career somewhere. But right now, I don't know. Like, I don't think he's on Fields level. And with Hal, like, I went on Seattle radio. I'll talk about him next. I went on Seattle radio this morning, and I told him, I think you guys, there's a reason why there was a market for him. I'm like, I was talking about this last week. I'm like, if he turns into Kirk Cousins in a few years, it will not surprise me. Like, I think it's very possible if he goes to the right place, he could be really, really, really good. So to answer that question, I don't think we know what Hal's potential is because I thought he, not unlike Fields, was in a rough situation in terms of what was around him for the year that he got an opportunity. You get a more stable spot that kind of doesn't have him throw the ball 70% of the time,
right? And
gives him a better opportunity to kind of develop as a quarterback. I think he could turn into a really good one, but it'd be very different than Fields. And I think they're hard to compare. They're two very different players.
It could have been
very different players.
I think another factor here though is maybe the Bears weren't playing ball either. Like they said, this is the price. Whereas
maybe
with both the Howell and the Pickett trade,
they probably tried to get a first-round pick initially. Nobody would give it to them. So then so some people. If they turn down a second-round pick now they're looking dumb.
Right, but I'm getting at here is in the Howell and the Pickett trade, because the Howell trade happened first, obviously. It was Howell and a 4th-rounder to get the 3rd back and a
second swap. It was like a 6th and a 5th.
But
then everyone's trying to do this chart to figure out who got what.
But what I'm saying is that happened, and then Pittsburgh did the same thing, and it's almost like maybe the Bears were saying the price is a 3rd-round pick, and other teams were going, can we make a swap here or something like that? Maybe they just weren't negotiating it, because I think that's possible. What it sounds like. Because when I saw this Howell trade, I went, that's actually a pretty good trade for both squads. Like, if you drafted a developmental quarterback, it would have costed you the same thing, essentially. So.
I want to go back to one other thing that was said at the Combine. Remember, this was a huge thing that Ryan Poles said. He said, we're going to do right by Justin, and we're not going to leave him in a gray area.
Right.
It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah. And that was them. That was on them.
And the whole market has completely shifted to which a number of the teams that you think would be interested in him suddenly aren't anymore because they couldn't get a deal done and they moved on. And now they've got their solutions. Atlanta's off the table. Tampa's off the table. I don't know that New England is, but they're picking 3rd, so you don't know. And they just signed Brissett at least as a bridge. Minnesota looks like they are not, they probably wouldn't get him anyway, but looks like they're looking at very different things all of a sudden. The Giants went and made their move. They could have been one. Seattle now suddenly is off the board because they went and made the move they want to make for a quarterback of the future. Chicago has screwed this up, but the question is why and what held them back? And the only conclusion I can come to is Caleb Williams not privately telling them, pick me, I can't wait to go there, is the reason why they have kind of gone slowly here. Because when they said we're going to do right by him and we're going to get this done, and then they just didn't do it, why would they say that publicly?
Yeah.
We're going to get Caleb Williams.
No, stop it.
I think we are.
I'm not believing anything. I mean, for all you know, Caleb's just playing.
Mark me down today. I think we're getting him one way or the other. I think we're either trading up to number 1 or he's falling to number 2. I think we're getting him. That's what I think is happening.
This week is getting to you.
No. Like, just take stock of everything that's happening and go, why haven't they moved him if they know they're taking Caleb Williams number 1? Like, what would they be waiting for? Why?
You're just discounting the fact that they're an incompetent organization, though.
See, I don't know that they are. Like that trade they made that gave up for Bryce Young to be in the position they are now looks pretty darn smart at this point.
Sure, but I'm still not saying they're going to hit every single decision that they're going to make.
Well, they haven't. The Chase Claypool one blew up in their face.
Right.
The Montez Sweat one looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Looks good, but
exactly.
everyone agrees that like that was a fair trade.
The weird
Washington
linebacker thing, though, where they let...
The weird linebacker thing was weird?
Yeah, where they signed one and let their own guy go.
I mean, did they make this move for Keenan Allen to try to entice, because Fields doesn't think they have enough weapons? I mean, what's his name? Caleb doesn't think they have enough weapons, so go do something. Like, what's happening here?
Don't know.
Mark me down.
To be fair,
mark me down. I think we are now more than 50-50 now that we're going to get Caleb Williams. One way or the other that we're going to get him.
The trade last night, that was a no-brainer. If you had the cap space to do it, a 4th-round pick to get Allen that was stupidly good.
You have to pay him the money.
No, of course.
But he makes top-tier money.
But they're not paying a quarterback. They're either going to have Fields or a rookie quarterback. That was a genius. Like, that was a proper pay for that. So, I mean... that was just a smart move in general.
I mean, just think about this too for a second. With the number 1 overall pick, and you clearly don't want to extend and pay Fields yet because you're not ready to do it.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you use it?
No, for sure. No, I'm with you.
So why haven't they traded Fields then? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, this goes back to what I suggested last week. How do you know they're not going to take Fields into camp? They could say that there's the timeline, but they don't have to adhere to it.
I have such a hard time believing.
Schefter was saying that in January.
I have such a hard time believing that anybody's giving them anything of value for him in August.
If someone's quarterback goes down, you don't know that.
Maybe.
Just saying.
All right, let me take a quick break. Bram Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Jerry Dulac, who's covered the Steelers forever, says this. The Steelers made the move because of the way Pickett was poorly handling the arrival of Russell Wilson, according to sources. That came on the heels of Pickett's behavior last season when he refused to dress as the emergency third quarterback in Seattle in Week 17. And so Tomlin ain't going to put up with that.
Yeah,
like, professionalism is a big part of the Tomlin thing.
Exactly.
You will be a professional here. Mm-hmm. If you don't want to be here, there are no hostages. We will let go of you. If you will not be a professional here, we will also have a problem with you.
Right, exactly. And Pickett's not worth that squeeze.
100%.
Like, he did not warrant any kind of flash to be able to act like that and bitch like that either.
Correct.
So
he doesn't look like Ben Roethlisberger.
That's right.
If he played like Ben Roethlisberger, they would put up with it.
Right.
They put up with Antonio Brown was a classically unprofessional person, but he was at one point the best receiver in the NFL. Yeah, and so they put up with it.
Right.
If you aren't that, they're not going to put up with it there. So, all right, so it might be as simple as that. Oh, you don't want to be here? Fine.
Right.
We got your replacement anyway.
Not to mention, it was like they got a good haul for him. I mean, for a guy that didn't look, I mean, like, you know what I mean? But they got enough value out of it. They didn't let it go to zero, essentially, and flip him for a 7th rounder. They got a high enough pick.
Listen, the Eagles with Pickett, 3 postseason runs with him. 3 postseason runs.
I will say this, too, though. Like, this is so Eagles, too. Buy low on a guy who was a former first-round pick that there's no pressure for him. Howie.
Yeah.
Howie.
Buy low. I mean, they needed a backup. We signed their backup. They needed a backup. They bring him in here. He's no real threat to Hurts.
Right.
You know, but it's one of those things. If Hurts goes a little sideways, well, they have this former first-round pick that's making no money for a couple of years, who sounds like he needs to get his head put on straight a little bit. But whatever.
Does your boy Hands, does he get a Go Birds tattoo because he is an Eagles fan?
I think so.
I think he has to get the Go Birds lip tattoo.
I mean, Pickett sounds like he acted a little like Wentz when Wentz was in Philly.
No, I agree with you.
And now is oddly going to Philadelphia, where they're going to tell him, hey, dude, you flame out here, by the way, then the book's going to be out on you. I mean, that's part of it, too. It's like, you were a first-round pick there for a couple of years ago, and if you actually go sideways here now, everyone else in the league's not going to trust you.
Well, it's not only that. If you act like a bitch here, the fans will eat you alive.
Oh, they'll kill you.
That. You were that guy.
You now know.
Like, you know how that works.
Watch your step, player.
Right.
All right, let's get into Sam Howell.
Yep.
I haven't even done Aaron Donald yet, who retired today. That's amazing.
Yep.
Well, let me talk about the Commanders, because there's been a lot of ex-Commanders got deals suddenly. And
2 biggest ones,
Yep. 3. Kam Curl, Curtis Samuel, Kendall Fuller, all got deals
Fuller
yesterday.
Curl,
Yep. But let me talk about Sam Howell for a minute. So, this happened in the middle of the afternoon yesterday, but we were off because the Terps were on our air, losing by 65 points. What a
the
finish,
term
guys.
for playing, which we use that loosely.
What a finish, guys. Way to go out in style. Incredible.
I think it was Jeff Ehrman who tweeted last night before you jump into Howell was like, and a very forgetable Maryland season is coming to a close in 20 minutes. Like, that's the second half opened
really
up.
I think because we knew we would be off, if they had won the game against Rutgers, and I think I texted you yesterday. I go, I think we're lucky they even won that game because they have had, like, as the season was coming down to the stretch, it was kind of going this way where the writing was so beyond on the wall that they would no-show. So they played a night game, then took on a team that's okay. That's the worst part of it. It's not like Wisconsin's really good.
Yeah.
They just got rooked by an average team because they just didn't care. Whatever. Anyway, as for Sam, as predicted, there was a decent market for him. Yep. The reporting is there were 4 teams. Even John Schneider did an interview, the Seattle GM, and said we were sweating it out because there were a lot of teams that wanted him.
Yeah.
I can't figure out that. Everyone's complaining about what value did they get for him because they did 2 pick swaps, and some people are attributing the point differential between the pick swaps as a 3rd to 4th round pick, and others are just saying that they got. I don't care.
Right.
Whatever. They moved up in the draft in a couple of spots.
That's all I care about is they moved up.
Yeah, there was a market for him. He's an incredible bet for somebody because look, like I said this a lot after the season and really the last couple of weeks, and this is why I think there was a case to just keep him. But the problem is, obviously we're going in a different direction, so we're never developing him again, not in the short term, to be the starter again. We're going to be developing Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, somebody. Like, that's what's going to be happening. So in the short term, he needed to go, unfortunately for him. But I have felt this way even after the season. I'm not down on him at all. I think for a variety of reasons that he was put into a not a great situation to be a first-time starter. I don't love the game planning.
Misutilized is an understatement with him.
I think they put way too much on his plate.
Yep.
The game planning made no sense. The players have said this. I mean, how this team ended up being 70-30 in the first half of the season and then 60-40 for the rest of the season, pass run, never made any sense, especially with an offensive line that was not going to be their strength at all, turned out to be a weakness. He also is an inexperienced quarterback. The hits started compiling on him a lot. He was tracking by November to have the most sacks ever by any quarterback in a single season. The hits he was taking early in the year, some of it was on him, and some of it was on poor protection, and some of it was on him getting rid of the ball quickly. So it was a combination there, but it started to add up. By the time we got to the latter part of the season, it was getting to the point where it was obvious he needed to take a mental break because you could see his play was being affected by it. He was starting to feel pressure that he wasn't feeling early, that wasn't necessarily there, almost like he was waiting to get hit. By the end of the year, though, I got to say, like when they had to put him back in because Jacoby's hamstring suddenly hurt again when he was told he had to start in games that didn't matter anymore, and they had to put him back in. It was second year in a row that Ron got really egg on the face with the quarterback situation with how he handled it down the stretch where quarterbacks basically told him, no, thank you. You know, I mean, I think that's what happened, but basically, no, thank you. I thought he handled that extremely professionally and actually played relatively well in the last couple of games because I was very concerned. My concern was I just don't want to put him out there because the season's lost and I don't want this guy to become a pitcher who's been hit so many times that he can't ever pitch again. So by the end of the year, like I really liked him. I think he's a really good professional. I think he's got a great arm. I think he's got a big upside. I think he needs a better stout line in the middle because he's not the tallest guy. He's like my height. He's like 6 feet, 6'1" maybe, but he's got the right body type for it. I think this season will hopefully help him, understand to limit the punishment you take and put on yourself. Hey, you're running for a touchdown. You're going to die for the pile and you're going to take a hit for your team. Cool. On 2nd and 6, when you're taking on Fred Warner,
there's no reason.
There's really no reason to do that, and maybe he'll learn from that. But overall, like I think Seattle, and I thought whoever got him, I think you're getting a deal here, and you have somebody who I think has the right disposition for it and a big time upside. And I think if he was a little older in a different situation where he wasn't with a coach that was total my way or the highway, and I said this on the Seattle radio station this morning. I said I would say this to your coaching staff. Like, you need to empower him to vocalize his leadership a little bit more, but it's there. It wasn't natural to him here. And I think a lot of it had to do with the situation. but you should empower him to do so because he knows what he's doing. He's way ahead of his time. He started a lot in college. He's a very experienced player. And I think, I'll reiterate, if in a few years he turns out to be a very good, solid, Kirk Cousins-y type quarterback, that will not surprise me at all. And I think Seattle's taken the right shot on him. And I really wish him the best of luck because I thought he was in a very difficult situation by the team's own making. I didn't love that Ron put it on him early that. It wasn't really fair. They said they were going to have a competition, Jacoby Brissett's real competition. It never really was one. Mm-hmm. Part of that was Brissett didn't look like he should win the job. So that was part of it.
Yeah.
But it also, as things kind of materialized, there wasn't really a competition going on. And there was some malpractice on the offensive line with him. And the offensive coordinator, it wasn't a very collaborative process. And then he's young and doesn't want to speak up, and everyone else is going, what's going on here? And then everything went Wild West and got really ugly on him. Hits started piling up, and, he needs a reset. But I think the reset will do him good. And I believe that he's going to end up being a very effective quarterback if he's in the right place. So I wish him a lot of luck, and I think Seattle got a good deal, on him. And just unfortunately, there was, because they were asking me, and I've seen a lot of this too, are we going to regret this in a few years? Yes and no. If he does turn into something like that, and whoever we pick at number 2 does it turn out to be really good, sure. But what the situation is right now, no, because we're going to, whether you believe in him or not, we're taking a quarterback at number 2. Our job is going to be to develop that person. And when his contract is up, the most he was going to be is our backup. That's the most. And it always made sense to me why they signed Mariota, to go get a veteran presence in the room who can, help ground whoever this much ballyhooed hyped player is going to be when he walks in here. Mariota has lived it, walked down that road, even talked about it yesterday when he spoke to the media of how I'm going to be a good teammate. I have a lot of experience. I could talk to them about a lot of different things. He did this. I had a high-profile collegiate career, was a high pick, was a Heisman Trophy winner, and he didn't have the career that I think anyone expected him to have, but he's still here. He has survived. He's a wealth of knowledge for whoever we end up selecting, and hopefully he will be a good teammate who grounds that person. But the bottom line is, Hal couldn't provide that to whoever our quarterback was going to be. And secondarily, we're not developing Hal anymore. We're developing Jaden Daniels, Drake May, or Caleb Williams. That's what we're doing. So he was never going to have a good short-term track to get back. He's now going to a place where within a year, he could be their long-term starter, and it may end up being great for him. And I wish him the best because I think they got a good deal on him, and I'm rooting for him. I really enjoyed covering him. I like calling his games. He's got onions. That kid is tough.
Sure.
I liked him. He put his body on the line for this team. He finally started to become a leader by the middle of the season. I think he's very accurate. He's got a very good arm. I think he's got a good feel for the game. He had a couple of late game comebacks. Seattle saw it personally. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia saw it last year. I'm rooting for him. And I just feel like different time, different place. I think it might be a different outcome with him. But because of where we are, we had to trade him. We did.
Thank goodness they didn't name the team the Red Wolves for him.
Yeah, the howling would have been amazing. Oh, Bram, we can't get rid of him. I like to howl. You roly-poly.
They did play, I don't know if you ever noticed, whenever he would come out on the field, the first play, they'd play the old NWO Wolfpack theme.
Oh, yeah.
From WCW.
Yeah, I would hear the howling,
Which was funny.
Yeah, I did notice
that's about as far as it got.
Okay, on the other one part of it here is, so now everybody wants to connect dots, right? Because we traded him. Mm-hmm. Well, we traded him, and he's also, he's really good friends with Drake May, and that might be awkward, so I guess we're taking Drake May, or the other,
with Mariota.
But Mariota came in, so we must be doing an alternative offense. So we're taking Jaden.
Right.
I think Hal had to go either way. Mm-hmm. That's the way I would put it. I don't think it's signaled. I still think we're taking Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels personally. And it seems like the league is starting to think that too. And they're starting to kind of report this way that does New England really like Drake May is what they're saying now.
Yep.
So Minnesota and the Giants are eyeing what appears to be that pick if they don't love him. That's what seems to be materializing here. So I think we're going to end up taking Caleb if we can get him, and probably Jaden Daniels. I think that's where it's heading. But that said, I will hear out the connecting the dots of, and I didn't believe this would be possible either. You couldn't have if they are picking Drake May, you couldn't have him and Howell in the room together.
Of course.
It was not. You got to be human here for a minute. That wasn't going to work out.
Look at what the formula has been, though, across the board for both sides of the ball, though. They have literally signed a veteran at almost every single position that has a problem area to help bring the room along.
Yes.
Mariota falls under that category.
Correct.
You couldn't have Sam mentor whoever the number 2 overall pick is. They don't even see eye to eye. They're not the same person.
No, exactly.
So.
I mean, all along I said they have to get a veteran quarterback in here. I'd love to have Jacoby back, but Jacoby's got a chance to start. So
he's
obviously,
going to be a bridge guy. So.
Of course. So of course he's going to take that and do that. But we needed to find somebody. Well, they found him.
Right. Exactly.
They found him.
Yep.
To Sam Howell, I wish him the best. And I'll talk about the other signings from the ex-Commanders in a minute. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
This is the Bram Weinstein Show on ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
I've done so much this week. John Keim has kindly agreed to come on again on Friday. His 4 o'clock typical visit during the season. I don't like to bug him too much this time of year because he gives us his time during the season.
Right.
But we've done a little too much this week, so he's going to join us.
It's also all, for once again, our friend Al Galdi was saying, we've earned this. It's all on the field news for once. There's no scandal, Washington Post report, a story with 16 reporters on it.
Well, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, if they get Daniels or Williams, especially if they get Caleb Williams, I think this is the greatest offseason this team's had that I can remember. If they get Jaden Daniels, it still may rank up there.
Still way
I mean,
I agree.
The new ownership, the new GM, the home runs he's hitting in terms of, like the type of people he's bringing in, not stretching the cap whatsoever, just baselining the team again. I think everybody's come around because everyone keeps applauding. Every person who talks about Dan Quinn talks about how great they love him. So now the fan base is calmed off of that initial reaction of, we didn't get the guy we wanted. We wanted that guy in Detroit, and we were told we were going to get him. And that's dissipated big time. The coaching staff looks good, strong, and all of a sudden, like all these free agents, like half of them that signed these short deals are like, well, I want to play for him. That's what Bobby Wagner said today. Well, I like playing for him. Those are the coaches I like. Jeremy Chin said the same thing. I came here because I want to play for him. Frankie Louvu was convinced to leave Carolina. Well, I want to go play for him. So I think everyone's turned on that. They end up with Caleb Williams. This might be the greatest offseason this team's ever had, or at least that I can remember. I can remember.
I would agree. It's also separated the fans that know ball and don't know ball, because there are some fans that are freaking out because they don't have the big name. And I have to push back and say, do you not realize they've signed almost all new starters with every single guy they've got, and they didn't commit any money to them, and the years are the most 3? Like, how do you not like what they're doing right now?
You can get out of any of the deals that they've done. Most of them are actually very short. So it's very possible that, Bobby Wagner is only here for a year. Jeremy Chin is only here for a year. And so that's a possibility that could change. I'll get into the guys who left in a moment. But news from the Cowboys. Leighton Vander Esch is being released. He actually missed a lot of time. He's got a neck injury. He may have to retire. So we'll have to see. But he's officially being released. And then this one, which isn't a surprise, but, it's just another sign of, and for all the people who keep doing all these stupid segments about, why are the Cowboys not doing anything in free agency? Have you looked at their cap? They can't. So today, they released Michael Gallup.
Yep, that's a loss.
So he's out. They're going to do the post June 1, so saves them about $9.5 million in room this year. It's going to count $8.7 in 2025. So it appears as if they've decided the move we're going to do is we're going to play out a year with Dak. It's going to kill us on our cap. And then it's going to open up a massive hole for us unless he's great and forces us to give him another contract. And if he isn't, then we're going to circle back around. I'm with you. I'd take a shot on getting Fields down there too if I were them. I just to have him, have him in your back, have him and Lance in your back pocket, and let's see what happens.
And if neither one of them work,
you don't owe them anything.
You don't owe them anything. Not only that, you got Dak in the 4th round. You got Romo undrafted. Like I've said this about the Cowboys. The most underrated thing about the Cowboys is they find talent at every single position, including quarterback somehow.
They do. So Gallup's now out there. I still think we need another receiver. I know we re-signed Jamison Crowder, so we got our punt returns are taken care of, and he's a 4th, 5th receiver. I still think a number 3 needs to be acquired. I don't think it's a massive need. I think you're going to find that second wave of free agency. I think you can get it, but we'll watch that. The other things that have happened here, and I think like what's been put in motion, and I'll talk more to Keim about this stuff, is the plan for a couple of marquee things have been clarified. The trade of Howell ends any discussion of what we're doing with the top pick. Like we're not trading down anymore. Like never did I ever think they were doing it anyway, but that's now clearly actually off the board. We're taking a quarterback at number 2 or potentially number 1. Who knows what's going on with the Bears? And then we haven't signed a tackle.
Right.
We need a tackle. So I think, this compilation of all this draft capital screams they're going to try to get back into the first round with either 2 second-round picks, a second and a third, whatever it may be, to move up, because this is a very deep tackle draft, and try to get somebody, whoever they like. And I would guess that they're going to try to get into either the low 20s or the mid-teens, depending on who's available. You're not going to get Joe Alt. You're not going to get the guy from Penn State, because they're going to go top 10 to top 12. But there are like 4 or 5 others that are expected to go into the first round. And so I think there's room to move to make it. If the draft starts falling, interestingly, in their favor, they might just wait it out and get to the top of the second round and take one. But I have a feeling that's what's happening. We have so many high draft picks that they're going to put a couple together, try to move back into the first round, and try to settle offensive line, at least tackle there. And I'm sure they'll go get a veteran tackle that they need to have. One is a swing tackle, and 2, if you don't feel ready to start the rookie, that you put Tyron Smith or whoever it may be, someone of that nature has been around a long time that you trust and could put out there for potentially a year. And the other one I'm watching closely now is corner. They haven't done anything there. They clearly need one.
Yep.
And so I think if there's going to be the swing, I have a feeling it's going to be a trade to get a good corner. And I'm watching Greg Newsome from Cleveland. His name's been thrown out there. He's young. They already paid Denzel Ward. I think something's coming from our end that we need to get a corner in here for sure.
Yeah.
As for the guys who left, Kendall Fuller signed with Miami, 2-year deal, about $8 million a year. So they dropped Xavier Howard. They pick up Fuller. I think they got a pretty decent deal. I think the length is right. I love him. He's a great guy, great locker room guy, great locker room leader. I didn't think that they would re-sign him, mainly because he has basically dealt with knee injuries for years, and he's played through them. Like, to his credit, he's played through them, but he's getting up near 30, and I just never thought that there was a long-term plan to sign with him. I think the length and money is right. So I think Miami got a very good player, and they probably should feel pretty good about that. Curtis Samuel goes to Buffalo. Perfect for him.
Yep.
I mean, beyond.
Yep.
If he stays healthy, Allen's going to love him. Like, absolutely love him. And I wish him the best. I liked Kurt a lot, too. His injury, they lied about it. It was way worse than anyone thought. And so I wish him a lot of, he got real money too to go up there. Yeah. And then the last one's Kam Curl, who we've been talking about this for a year. What's his number? It ended up being a lot lower than I probably what he envisioned. I don't know what happened between him and the team. Maybe we'll find out, but I'm guessing he went to them and asked for a good amount of money, top tier money. And they said, no, test free agency. The safety market got saturated. And then some of them already started getting signed. And then he got what feels like a very short-term deal for someone of his age and caliber at a number that's a little lower than I think they expected. So I think the Rams got a very good player on a very good deal, and the market ended up not being in his favor at his position. So he picked the wrong year to be a free agent safety, unfortunately. But I wish him luck out there, because I loved him. I thought he was, at times, their most reliable and best player on defense. At least, maybe not best. He made no game-changing plays, but he was a very, very, very good player. And when he was out, it was like a house of cards behind that defensive line. So I wish him the best out there, too. Keim is next. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. Glad to bring in John Keim for a Friday visit here in the offseason off of an extremely busy week. The first free agency of the new ownership group, the first free agency of the new general manager and the new coaching staff. Signed a ton of players to come in here, a number of which project to be starters. And so as we welcome in John from ESPN, the John Keim Report, let me just get your general sense of, did you expect it to be this robust? What were your expectations? And now that we're here, how do you feel? Like, what's your general reaction to the amount of players that they signed?
So I knew they'd be active, but I knew they wouldn't have splash signings. I didn't know that active would mean, like, basically signing a whole new team in a couple of days. So I guess in hindsight, I'm not surprised. Well, I'm a little surprised at how many they signed, but I think, but I was not surprised that they were very active.
Okay. So let's go through some of them, and let's start with what happened yesterday with Sam Howell, which, to me, not that this was ever, I think, in question, but I think it clarifies the plan for the future. They are picking a quarterback very high in the draft.
Right.
Like, that is happening now. What was just your general sense of the return they got for Sam? and the decision to definitively move on from him?
Well, I never thought that they were going to, try and roll with Sam. I think the only question was, is he here for a backup for a couple of years, or does he get traded? And I think more than them trading him, and you're right. Like I don't think anybody around the team really expected him to really compete for the job, because you have a new regime, none of whom are tied to him. I know, Adam Peters, Josh Harris, Dan Quinn, the three main guys, none of whom were here when Sam Howell came here. So they have, and then you add in the fact they have the number 2 pick. Of course, you're going to take a quarterback. I think the only thing to me was, does he stick around or not? And once you sign Mariota, that was the answer. And I think it makes sense that you'd want to pair a veteran with a rookie. And while Sam is technically a veteran, I think you'd want a guy with more experience, who's been through more things, that can help him. Plus, Sam Howell is a young kid who's still developing. I think you kind of want to let the rookie develop without another young guy ahead of him already. Now, next year, if you had a guy, that's fine. I would do that, but not this year. Let the kid have it this year. So as far as the return goes, pretty good. It's funny because you hear a lot like, oh, they got a 3rd-round pick. Well, yeah, but they gave up a 4th, and they moved up into the 5th, gave up a 6th. So it's not a straight get a 3rd for Sam Howell.
Yeah.
They did get another pick in the 3rd round, but they did have to give up a couple picks too. But I think in each of those cases, moving up, you're moving up almost a full round. That's good. So, I think, and when you look at what Mac Jones fetched, which was a 6th, and then you look at the trouble Chicago's having trading Justin Fields, there's not I guess there's probably not a huge, and plus, there's a lot of quarterbacks in this draft, so there's not a huge market. The only thing I thought, Bram, the only thing I wondered was, would they do it now? Would they wait till the draft, when maybe they could get more? Would they wait till August, when maybe you could get a little bit more? But it makes sense to do it sooner rather than later.
Okay, so now that they have done it, and it clears the way, and it clarifies that near the top of the draft, this is the direction that they're going to go, we could start having the conversation. Who do you think they like? Have you gotten
start
any?
Having the conversation.
Oh, I mean, but we're here now. Where it's clear as day. There's no more of this. Well, they could do this, or they could trade down. Or they're not. They're either moving up, or they're staying at 2 and they're taking a quarterback. So what is it?
I would disagree. I think they could, and I'm not. Listen, if I had to put it in order, it would be stay put, trade back, trade up. And even if they traded back, I never thought it would be to roll with Sam Howell. So I don't the quarterback thing has always been there. They were never going to just roll with Sam, and that because you never heard that, right? And it was if they trade back, which of those are you taking? J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, whatever. And I think it's one thing I think that's very interesting today is that Minnesota picked up another 1st-round pick.
Yes.
But so and the only reason I bring it up is not so much for this team. But if you want to move up in the draft and you're picking where they are, which is in the low teens, 11 I think it is, then I guess that's not teens, but if they're picking 11, right? So if you're going to pick there and move up, and with a team at the top of the draft, you need to give 2 1st-round picks this year. So they now got more ammo if they want to attempt to do that. Now, having said all that, I still think Washington's going to stay put and choose obviously between then Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Now, as far as which one, because I just think Chicago, they're going to pick Caleb Williams, right? I think they're going to stay put there. So
I think so, unless there's something we just don't know. Is Caleb Williams committing to play for them? That's the only thing that I think is hanging out there at this point.
Well, that may be, and that's right. There's the unknowns, but the other unknown would be, how do they view a guy like, for example, Jaden Daniels? Would they view him close enough to Caleb Williams where the haul of, if you trade back one spot, let's say, then you get multiple picks, is that with having Jaden plus all those picks, be better than having Caleb Williams. And I'd say the flip side for Washington.
Well, I'm calling their bluff on that, John. If I think that they're going to do that, I'm calling their bluff and say, take the guy you want. We're taking the other one at number 2. Good luck with fleecing us. Yeah.
And 1,000% I agree with you. But that's the only thing, like, you don't, like, I'm trying to think, that's the part, like, but I don't know. I haven't heard that he's not going to play for them at this point. And, the other thing is, too, is the Cliff Kingsbury angle. We don't know what their relationship was.
Right.
Like, people assume things. Oh, well, they coached him. I know they're, like when Dwayne Haskins was here, people assumed like, oh, Urban Meyer might come here because he wanted to coach. That may have worked against that. Like, you don't know. Like, in this case, you don't know. And so you can't assume that that's like, oh, they coach, he loves them, they'll play together again. We don't know that. So I think, let's just assume Chicago takes them. Obviously, the choice then is Jaden Daniels or Drake May. And, which way they're leaning, it's hard to say. And, I talked to somebody who's really tight with Adam Peters, who's like, he's not telling me. So, it's hard to know. And that's how it should be. Like, and here's the other part, Bram. It's just like in the coach search. There were a lot of narratives and beliefs outside that building that were not accurate or maybe way further down the road than they really were. And I think the same is kind of true here, because I don't, with the lesson learned that I learned from that whole experience was the approach they took in the coach search is going to be the one they take in free agency or in the draft. And they haven't met with these guys for a long time. I mean, you've been around, you've watched the film, you met with them at the combine for 15 minutes. That's speed dating. It's just like a Zoom after the coaching search. The Zooms were not going to put anybody in the league. And so, when you get these guys at the facility, that's when you're going to really, I think that will start to be a separator, because you can like Jaden Daniels' game to me is just like, if you're a defensive coach, he has to scare the heck out of you. But you need to get him in the building to see what is he about.
Yep.
How is he on the board? So that's why I say I think the process. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been leaning a little bit more toward Jaden Daniels lately,
I have too.
Just because of and someone else told me today, like the chaos he creates.
Yes.
And I just think that like the ceiling, it might be higher. And he just started it. I think he came into college as an immature player, not an immature kid necessarily, but immature player, and had to learn how to study, had to learn how to be a college quarterback and not just rely on talent. And it feels like that started to be the case, the last year and a half at LSU, or last 2 years. And so like that, and I know, like we know, this too, defensive coaches hate facing guys like Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I watch, you're actually going to have Herm Edwards on your podcast next week, who coached him at Arizona State. So I'll be very interested to hear what he has to say about him. I mean, what I see, I started watching, because I feel like we're taking him. If we stay at 2, I think they're taking him. That's just my gut. I don't know. That's just my gut. Yeah, so I've been watching a lot.
That's where I'm leaning now too.
His improvement from his first couple of years to what he did last year is massive. Absolutely massive change. There are things, his frame scares me a little bit. Yeah. He takes cartoonish hits at times. That scares me a little bit. But he also, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the draft part of all this, because I want to go back to free agency. But he does stay in the pocket, and he can be very accurate from there. And that's the part, and then add in the athleticism part where he goes, and this is where he's really different. It's not just that he's fast. His 0 to 20 when he vacates the pocket is unbelievable. He gets up to speed so fast, he's gone in a flash. And so that's why I'm excited about him. There are attributes that most people do not have.
I haven't seen speed that fast since they put out the media spread at halftime, and you watch the reporters get over there. It's that fast.
Who's that a shout out to? Who are you shouting out there? Ben? Are you shouting out?
No, it's probably everybody. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. And so the things that jump out to me with him at this point, and you brought the word accuracy, and I was talking to somebody the other day about that exactly, because I'm trying to talk to a lot of people, like, what's the separator for you when you're watching film? What do you see that translates and doesn't translate? So, for example, with Jaden, a lot of times I'm watching him and he has clean pockets. I mean, it's clean as heck pockets. So, like, he's standing there patting the ball or just, like, kind of bouncy, loose and all that, but nobody's around him. So what do you – like, that's not – I don't want to knock him for that, but how do you evaluate that? Because in the NFL, you rarely get that. But, like, what you look for is decision-making. Is he going to the right place with the ball? Is he always going to his first target? Is he looking off that guy, to get to someone else? And when does he run? And typically he's running when I would watch him run, it's okay. There are definitely times where I feel like, oh, you could have gotten that one out. Definitely. And almost every running quarterback that I've ever seen, you can say that about, like, you had a chance to get to this guy. You would have only gotten 9 yards, but it's the right pass because he's there. Now, you gain 25 with your legs, but you're taking the risk with the hits at the end. However, he does give you that ability to bail out of situations. And that's rare. And so, but you saw the accuracy down the field. And the hard part, the reason I bring up accuracy, like, you watch, now listen, Josh Allen wasn't accurate in college either. And he's been a great, great pro. But when I watch Drake May sometimes, he misses a lot of layups. And that's, like, as someone else said, that does not get better in the NFL. You don't get better at that. So if that's a problem in college, you have to pay attention to it. The other one is turnovers. Jaden Daniels was really good at LSU at not turning it over. And for the most part, even at Arizona State, I think his first year only threw like 2 picks. Like, that's tremendous. So you take care of the ball, that's another big factor. And I think that's where the legs, if you don't trust it, you can run a little bit. And so, like, now Drake May has a size, and that's tempting, but and I think he also has, and I did talk to Herm today about this, but like, he's probably the best passer from the pocket of this group.
Yeah.
But the other ones cause problems. And I think that's, it's just hard to get beyond that. If you think this kid can be a leader, if you think he can be, have the other intangibles, because it's funny. I was talking about this with someone else, that with quarterbacks, if you're drafting a defensive lineman, you're looking at a couple factors for that player, right? A couple things, speed, athleticism, size, whatever. With a quarterback, there's like 10 categories that you're going to have to check off to see, is this the right one? And then you still don't know until you get them in. So, but that's why I say I think there's still more to learn. But I'm with you. Like, the more I've watched and talked to people, the more I've been leaning toward Daniels that I think they're going to take.
Yeah. All right, let me get back to free agency. So this was interesting, and we had talked about this throughout the year. This team went into last year with a large amount of prominent players on expiring contracts. Mm-hmm. So here we go. They have a bad season. There's a turnover, massive turnover in the organization, and it's a clean slate. And it was going to be very interesting to see, with all the cap room that they had, how are they going to handle all of that? And one, they clearly did not value a lot of the returning players. Two, and I would describe this, and I think what I'm impressed by here, by what they've done, because they could have gone out and swung for the fences on a couple deals if they wanted to, but they didn't, is that they were very aggressive but extremely disciplined. All of these deals are short-term. All of them don't really affect their cap significantly, almost across the board. Most of them you could get out of. I'm really, really genuinely impressed with what they've done here to try to fill out the roster with quality players, quality starters, and none of them hinder them on their cap, short-term or long-term.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think the strategy has been very good, because you're right. Like, the older guys they got, 1-year deals. Bobby Wagner, Austin Eckler. Well, Eckler's 2, but essentially you can get out of it after 1.
That's right.
But Wagner's a 1-year deal. But Zach Ertz, 1-year deal. You're bringing in guys.
Chin, 1-year deal.
Yeah. Chin, 1-year deal. But you're bringing in guys, and like the guys, like, I love the Frankie Louvu signing.
So do I.
I think that, to me, is the best one. And I think he'll be the most impactful guy. I think people are going to really enjoy that guy. But like the ones like, Biadasz, Dorrance Armstrong, those guys can be here for a couple years. But if they're not, like, if Biadasz after 2 years, if you're like, all right, there's not much difference between Ricky Stromberg and Biadasz, we can cut him, sign, free up more money and sign somebody else in a different position and roll with Stromberg. You can do that because, it's funny because I was talking to somebody who was here who felt like he said everybody in the room knew that Stromberg should have been starting at center last year until he got hurt. So like there are people here who feel like he could do it. So maybe but it gives you that flexibility, right? You're not tied to Biadasz for only 2 years. So, that's fine. Those are responsible signings. And I think more so than splash and big names, it's the responsible signings and the strategy that they've had. And it also protects them for the draft. Like they went out and signed 3 new defensive ends. They don't have to draft one now if there's not a guy they like at that spot, you don't have to draft them because before this, you would have had to have drafted one because you needed one. They don't need one now. They can take one, and I think the same is true. Like now, offensive line, we know they need a tackle. We know they need a corner. But there are other spots where, like, okay, you have all those picks in the top 100. You don't have to do something. You can take a guy or a receiver or take another guy like, well, we're planning on this, but take him because of the talent. And so it allows you to build for the future still because you were able to fill holes. And now you can just bring in – this is on paper. And it sounds all great on paper. It's really hard to do, but it's that flat-out best available. Now, corner, again, you better get, and tackle you have to get, but it's a good draft for those.
Yes.
So you're going to get a guy you like, most likely, where you're at, or you package and move up because they can do that.
So those 2 positions are the ones I want to talk about now. So, they didn't take major swings at free agency. I think they were very disciplined. I liked it. There was not a tackle on this market that deserved taking a giant swing at. So even though it was a desperate need, they don't have a left tackle. They literally do not have one right now. They didn't go out of their way to overpay what is probably an average player that was available. So what are they going to do about it? This screams, with the draft capital that they have in the top 3 rounds, to potentially package and move back into the first round because the tackle class is deep. And considering how many quarterbacks and receivers are going to go in the top 10, they're going to be good ones in the teens to potentially as low as 20 to 25. So that's what I'm looking for here, is that they try to get back in the first round and probably select their tackle of the now and future.
Agreed. And there's enough depth there that you might be able to get a guy you like sitting there in the second round.
That's possible. Yes, possible.
It's possible. Now, you're right. Like if there's a guy who's sitting there like, because somebody's going to fall that you don't expect. Always happens. And also with the quarterbacks that are getting pushed up, like if Penix goes higher and J.J. McCarthy goes higher and Bo Nix, heaven forbid, goes higher too, like it's pushing guys down. And there is already depth at that position. So, yeah, I agree. Like this is where the flexibility comes in, that you can package and move up to get a guy if you want. So, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's how they do it. And corner, you can stay. Corner's going to be very interesting because
I got a theory on that one too, but go ahead.
Okay, so one thing I'll say, like obviously you have St. Juste and you have Emmanuel Forbes, and you got to get some other guys in here, and
John, they don't have a number 1 corner. I think we all know that. They don't.
No, they do not.
They do not.
But no, and like now what you have out there, you have Stephon Gilmore, who played for them in Dallas. Now the only question I have with him is how, like, some guys really like this coaching staff and feel not so much tied to them, but it made sense. I don't know, like if you're Gilmore, do you want to come? Like Wagner had a long history with some of these coaches. If you're Gilmore, you are a 1-year guy with Dallas. Like, do you want to come here with these guys, or do you want to go to a contender? And I haven't heard anything with them. And I know, like, there was the corner from New Orleans who visited, who had a good year last year.
Isaac Yiadom, yeah. He used to play for the Giants.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't good until last year. And he's a guy who visited here yesterday. So, but like Emmanuel Forbes should have been that guy, but it was not just about scheme for him. So anybody who thinks that the scheme is going to fix him is not looking at the right things for him. He has to work on his game. Then they can work on making him better and turning him into a productive player. And so, I think that's he's going to have to improve though, because they don't have guys. I mean, the other part, Bram, too, is, you look at what that defense did with the corner in Dallas last year.
Deron Bland.
Yeah, thank you. And and he had a great year. But you can also create things with movement up front, which was not done here much last year, and then the ability to disguise. And I think your safety play is going to be a big factor in all this too. And the linebacker play, again, Luvu, Jamin Davis, I think still. I think that's going to be so. You're going to have to create pressure to help the corners out quite a bit. But I don't know. What's your theory?
Okay, so here's my theory. So I've laid out what I think is going on with tackle. I don't think there was a good viable option to spend a lot of money on. I still think they need to get a veteran just to come in here to either be a swing tackle or potentially a starter, right? Dependent. And then I think they're going to draft one. I think we're all aware of they're going to draft one, whether it's high in the second round or my theory of they package to move up and try to do it. Here's what I think is happening with corner, because this is different. There are actual viable options on the marketplace. Gilmore's there. Howard is there. Kendall Fuller was there. They could have brought him back. They didn't. He went and goes and signs with Miami.
For whatever reason that he was never going to come back here. But I like Kendall Fuller a lot.
I did too.
He was never in their plan.
Yeah. Okay. So, but they're unlike the tackle market. There are viable people. They haven't gone after them, right? So why? And they've done this with other aging veterans. They're willing to give them short-term deals. They haven't done it yet.
Right.
And because of what they've done so far, even with all these signings, they still have a massive amount of cap room to play with.
Yeah.
The big swing is coming. I think they're going to trade for a corner, and they're going to pay him. That's where I think the money's going to get spent. I think they're going to go try to find somebody. Greg Newsome from the Browns comes to mind. I think they're going to find a corner, and they're going to trade for him with some of this draft assets that they have, and they're going to pay him. And that's where some of the cap room's going to get eaten up, and they're going to get a younger potential number one corner here. That's how I think they're going to address it.
All right. Hey, listen, that has to be on the table because you're right. You do have the ability to do that. And if it's a younger corner, that's great. And I think that would make sense. It just depends. It always depends what you're giving up for that guy, of course. But that was one thing, too, that going into this, that's one of the things I wondered is, would they take on someone else, like not go out and sign him, but take something on that maybe the team doesn't like the contract, but the guy's a good player, right? So you can that has to be an option. It's just like I wondered if they would do something with John Allen's contract, and this would happen later, depending on how much cap space is there, to push more money onto this year to then keep him around a little bit longer, right? Instead of trying to extend him or whatever. So, but yeah, that I would think that has to be an option. It's just, you need a corner, so you have to look at everything. And if one thing we know with Josh Harris is you better come to him with, if you want to do something, give me every scenario that's possible before you make a move. Because if you don't, he's going to make you go back and figure that. Like if they don't come to him with this and he says, "What about a trade?" Well, we don't want to do that. Why not? Go check it out. So that has to be an option as well. So yeah, I would never. That's not a bad theory. I don't know if it'll happen, but the other thing is too. The other part with that is. Once we get through this wave of free agency, you start to see more guys released before the draft, or again, like you said, available in a trade before the draft. And then there's also the wave after the draft. And I think that'll be one to watch. But I'd rather get a corner before that because I don't want to just piece that part together. They need to get a good young corner in
100%.
And I think St. Juste will be okay with them, but again, you cannot roll with St. Juste and Forbes right now. And the way Forbes played last year is you just can't do it. You can't rely on him doing that.
All right, last one. They talked to Kam Curl's people. So what was just your general sense of him now officially not returning to the team?
Yeah, and I thought once he hit free agency or once we hit the legal tampering, he was gone. Once you get that 1 foot out, you're gone. And I don't think – there was not, even last week, there wasn't constant dialogue. It wasn't like they were going back and forth and they just couldn't get it done. His deal is not very big. And it's 2 years, up to $13 million, probably not worth more than 9 or 10 in real money. And so that's not this great deal. But I know they liked him, but clearly signals to me that there was a big difference in opinion on what the guy was worth. And I think there was a miscalculation on what Kam Curl was worth.
He also picked a really bad year to be a free agent safety. Boy, did that market get saturated badly on him.
1,000%. Yeah, yes, it did. I don't know the other hard part for if you're going to get paid as a safety, you better make plays.
Yeah.
And I think we all agree Kam Curl is a good football player.
He is.
I think he's a smart player and all that, but you cannot say he makes plays because he did. And I think he's, like I said, I think he's a good player. Like, I enjoyed watching him. I thought he was a smart player, tough, and all that. He just wasn't a playmaker. And if you're trying to get paid a certain amount, you better make those plays. And so I think for him, it'll be good to go out there and be with a good team and see if you make plays, and that's how you get paid.
Yep.
And it's still a good story for a guy that was a 7th-round pick. So.
Yeah, 100%. All right, John, thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bram.
All right, it's John Keim from ESPN, John Keim Report.